A loud, bossy voice snapped through the afternoon as a crowd of kids tried to get off the school bus. I had just gotten back from 3 months overseas, finally home, and excited to surprise my daughter, Mia, by picking her up. But what I saw stopped me cold. Standing at the bus door was a woman with tightly pulled back hair, huge sunglasses, and a sour expression. She was blocking Mia's wheelchair, clearly annoyed. "Hurry up," she yelled. "My kid has ballet class, and we're all waiting on you." Without warning, she leaned over and jabbed the lift button, even though Mia hadn't secured herself yet. The platform jerked, and Mia fell. Her wheelchair slid, and she hit the pavement hard. Blood trickled from her forehead. Her glasses shattered beside her. "Mia," I shouted, rushing over. I knelt beside her, heart racing. She was conscious but dazed, her face pale from shock and pain. This wasn't just some clueless parent. This woman, I later found out, was Rachel Price, the newly elected head of our neighborhood council. And she had no idea Mia's dad, me, was a former recon Marine. The day before, I had watched the bus drop Mia off, as usual. She was with our kind neighbor, Ms. Delgado, who helps out while I'm away. Everything looked fine until I saw Rachel get off the bus in place of the usual driver's aid. I grabbed my keys and started walking over. Rachel's voice cut through the air. "These kids with their chairs slow everything down. We've got things to do." Ms. Delgado tried to speak up. "Mia's got just as much right to this bus as anyone else," she said, but Rachel wasn't hearing it. "I'm doing this community a favor being here. My daughter, Kaylee, has a science competition. We can't be late." That's when I stepped in. "Excuse me," I said, standing between her and Mia. "She's my daughter." Rachel barely blinked. "Then maybe you should take her to school yourself." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Years in the military had trained me to stay calm under pressure. I'm Sam Harper. I just came back from deployment, and I expect my daughter to be treated fairly by law. She scoffed. "We got to stick to a schedule. Can't make everyone wait on one child." "It's not about convenience," I said. "It's about what's right and legal." After getting Mia home and cleaned up, she quietly asked me, "Am I making life harder for everyone?" "No," I told her, kneeling beside her chair. "You're brave. The kind of strong most people will never understand." Later that day, I called Mia's school. The principal, Dr. Blake, was furious. "She had no authority to be on that bus," he said. "We'll take care of this immediately." But that wasn't enough. I drove to the school district's transport office, where I met Mark Henley, a tough old logistics officer and Army vet. "Sam, that's outrageous," he said. "We'll handle the bus situation. Count on it." But this was bigger than a bad morning. I started looking into Rachel Price. She wasn't just HOA president. She and her husband, a property investor named Cole Price, had been reshaping the neighborhood for months, squeezing out families they saw as less desirable. People with disabilities, seniors, non-white families, anyone who didn't fit their vision. A couple days later, I found a notice taped to our door. Violation, unapproved wheelchair ramp. Remove within 7 days or face fines. I'd had the ramp for years. It was already approved. Now it was war. I called other parents whose kids had special needs. I reached out to a former Marine brother who now practiced disability law. Within a week, I had files full of complaints. Rachel had made life harder for more than just us. The HOA meeting was set for the following Wednesday night. Mia insisted on coming. "I want to watch you fix this, Dad," she said. That night, the room was packed. Parents, neighbors, even local reporters. Rachel walked in late, wearing her usual smug grin, until she saw the crowd. "Let's start with updates," she began. "No," I said, rising. "We'll start with your treatment of families in this community." My lawyer, Jordan Michaels, stood beside me. "We represent over a dozen families facing discrimination under this HOA. We have documentation, and formal complaints have already been submitted to the Department of Justice." Rachel's mouth opened, but she didn't speak. Her husband stepped forward. "Surely there's a way to resolve this quietly." "This is the resolution," I replied. "The community is speaking now." My daughter, her stitches still fresh, rolled forward and looked Rachel in the eye. "I just want to ride the bus safely and not feel like I'm in the way." The silence that followed was loud. One by one, neighbors stood to support her. An elderly man named Mr. Grant, who'd been fined for installing a handrail, called for an immediate vote to remove Rachel and her board. The vote passed, overwhelmingly. As Rachel was quietly approached by a police officer, the local news crews caught everything. She was being investigated for endangering a minor and violating disability laws. The prices moved out within a month. The new HOA, led by Dr. Blake and community members, set up an accessibility task force. Mia became its youngest member. We rebuilt our neighborhood, not with bricks, but with fairness. Mia's injury healed, but what she inspired in others stuck. Because justice isn't always served in courtrooms or battlefields. Sometimes it happens in a meeting hall because a little girl asked to be treated like everyone else. Looking back now, it's surreal how quickly everything changed, from a routine afternoon at a bus stop to a full-blown community reckoning. But sometimes it only takes one spark to set off a fire that's been waiting to burn. For us, that spark was Mia, my daughter, my hero, my reminder that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet voice saying, "I just want to ride the bus." The weeks that followed brought real change. With the prices gone and a new, inclusive HOA board in place, our neighborhood slowly began to heal. The new board overturned every bogus violation Rachel had slapped on residents. Accessibility became a top priority, not a nuisance to be managed, but a right to be respected. Mia, ever determined, joined the accessibility committee without hesitation. At 12, she was sitting at tables with adults twice her age, confidently explaining why wheelchair-friendly sidewalks, safe school drop-offs, and inclusive playgrounds matter. They listened, not out of pity, but out of respect. She'd earned it, and it wasn't just our family. Other kids who had quietly been left out began to speak up. Parents who'd once felt powerless were suddenly showing up to meetings, voicing concerns, and being heard. The walls of silence and fear Rachel had built came crashing down. We weren't just fighting back, we were building forward. What struck me most, though, was how many people said they just hadn't realized what was happening until someone forced them to see it. The subtle ways Rachel had weaponized rules. The quiet moments of exclusion that didn't make headlines, but slowly chipped away at people's dignity. Sometimes injustice wears a mask. It doesn't always shout, but it whispers just loud enough to keep people small. That's the danger of apathy. And it's also the power of one voice refusing to be silent. As a parent, I've been trained to protect my child with everything I had. But it took Mia to remind me that sometimes the best way to protect her isn't by standing in front of her, but by standing beside her, letting her fight her own battles, knowing she has backup when she needs it. I still remember the scar on her forehead, how it looked that first night, how fragile she seemed. Now it's barely visible, faded but not forgotten. A reminder, not of pain, but of power, the kind of power that comes from standing up after being knocked down. The irony is I'd spent years overseas, defending the idea of freedom and fairness. I trained for the harshest conditions, carried out missions that pushed me to the edge. And yet the fight that mattered most, the one that really tested me, happened on a quiet street corner in a suburban neighborhood. Not with bullets or battle plans, but with community, truth, and one little girl's refusal to be treated like less. Mia changed this neighborhood. She made people care. And for me, she changed everything. I used to think my legacy would be tied to my military service. But I know now it's tied to her. To every ramp we helped install, every family that now feels safe, and every child who will never have to hear the word burden thrown at them like an insult. We still face challenges. Change isn't magic, it's work. But the difference now is we face it together. The families, the school, the board, the kids. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And try means everything. So, what do I say to Mia when she asks if things really got better? I tell her the truth. They did, because you made them. And the world's already better just for having you in it. That's the lesson I carry every day now. Change doesn't always come from the top down. It often starts small, at the edge of sidewalk or the foot of school bus. It starts when someone refuses to look away. When someone like Mia, despite the odds, insists on being seen and heard. She didn't just get back on that bus. She made space for others to do the same. And if you ask me what kind of warrior I respect most, it's not the one with medals or rank. It's the one who falls and gets back up anyway.